What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Rams Brothers. I'm your host, Dean, and I'm joined, as always, by my brother and the other great host of this show, Nick. And Nick, today we got a 53-man roster projection. But first and most importantly, how are you, my good brother?
I'm good, man. For those that saw on Twitter, I retired my lucky socks.
Yeah, why'd you do that? We need them for this upcoming season.
Well, I made a caveat. I said, I will unretire my lucky socks if Aaron Donald unretires during the season, which I think will happen if they get like a pretty good, place in the playoffs, if they're not like the 7th seed. So hopefully they come back out.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good plan. And you know what? As I was going through and I was building this 53-man depth chart, Aaron Donald, like watching him, seeing him on the defensive line and having to plug in new pieces, a little bit unsettling, a little bit uncomfortable. But I think as we kind of like go through this, it's all going to be really interesting just because obviously this is a projection. But before we jump into this, I want to make sure that you guys like and subscribe, right? A lot of good content coming out. We've been consistent week over week since the baby has been born, right? So we added a new Rams brother to the family, but we're trying to pump out content every single week. You're going to see a short every single day on our YouTube channel. So make sure that you guys hit the like and subscribe button because we're rolling out the content and the season is going to be here before we know it. Training camp starts in like 2.5 weeks. So it's literally right there, and then preseason, and then we're in the thick of it. So,
yeah, we're a month away from like legitimate football now. Summer is kind of flying by, and that's amazing. And you think when there's a baby in the picture, Dean would slow down, but he just gets faster. I don't know how it's possible, but he's a force.
That's how we roll. That's how we do it over here at Rams Brothers. So
just like McVay, a baby enters and a new beautiful mind is born.
It was so funny because when McVay's baby was born, all of a sudden he comes out and he says he's more rejuvenated than ever. He is impossible to figure out, right? Because like the year before in 2022, he wants to retire. 23 comes back. We have all these young kids. We're busting them in on a school bus. And now we have this incredible aura in the building. And now 2024 rolls around. He says he feels better than he's ever felt as a coach. And 23 was his most fulfilling season as a head coach in his history. So, that's the cycle coming into play, right? It's the off-season talk, but still, it's a lot of fun to hear it from the guy that's running the Rams.
Can you imagine saying that after you won the Super Bowl a year?
I think it's like it's the stress. It's climbing the mountaintop and then seeing what else is fulfilling throughout the journey, and bringing all these players along, and then seeing them kind of all be compatible together, which is a ton of fun. I could imagine, especially for the some of the younger guys in the building.
I feel like that's something you can only say after you won a Super Bowl and you need it to get your ass kicked. So it's like, that was the best season because after the Super Bowl year, I completely lost it. But now I need it last year to swoop me back up.
Yeah, and he's got the momentum of a son, right? Son keeps you on your toes. It keeps you extremely active. You got a bunch of new thoughts. You're kind of bring that father methodology into the building with some of the other guys. It's relatable with some of the other guys that have kids. So it's all fun. You see it all in the behind the grind episodes, which is a lot of fun. So first glance, quarterbacks. The Rams only kept 2 last year, Matthew Stafford and Stetson Bennett. And now we know who's in the building, former 49er and Las Vegas Raider, Jimmy Garoppolo.
I thought you were going to say like most handsome man in America or something. That pause was pregnant.
It was, you could talk about Jimmy Garoppolo's looks all day, but between Matthew Stafford's new veneers and the way that his smile just shines through every single picture, and Jimmy Garoppolo and Stetson Bennett, right? He cut the afro. Now he's a little slimmed down, and he's back from his mental break. So excited to see how those three guys, kind of net out. And obviously, it's Matthew Stafford who wanted to play all 17 games, but Jimmy G, very, very serviceable backup. I would say an upgrade over Carson Wentz, even if it's minor. And then Stetson Bennett, too. If he's healthy, he's in the building, he's playing in the preseason, I think you can chalk that up as a win, despite the fact that it steals another roster spot.
Yeah. I mean,
and then go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say the Stetson Bennett of it all kind of does worry you a little bit because as we go through this, you're going to see like there's only so many spots, and like, do we really need to carry him? And it's a bet on the future that he could be somebody in the, at some point in the Rams' career that he could be somebody that's called upon and makes big plays. But we haven't seen it yet. And the one time we saw them, I'm sure the one time in recent memory when they carried 3 and Stafford went down, and then we watched the other 2 just Wolford just fumble it away, and then they had to
Perkins.
bring in a 4th with Baker. 3 quarterbacks is like, it just scares me a little bit just because of that number.
Don't let it scare you. It's natural to keep 3 on the roster, especially if one guy's a former 4th-round draft pick and you're trying to get the best out of him, and he had to take a mental break and a year off, right? It's all part of the business, right? So then running backs too, like you'll see Ronnie Rivers, for example, he's crossed out, right? He's on a 1-year contract. I believe he was a restricted free agent. You probably save some money if you get out of that contract, but like keeping 5 running backs seems like a ton, unless you're going to have one assigned specifically to special teams, which Boston Scott will be. But last year, Cam Akers, Kyron Williams, Ronnie Rivers, and Zach Evans. This year, Kyron Williams, Blake Corum, Boston Scott, and Zach Evans I have as the 4 that I want to keep on the roster right now. And it's right. Obviously, the Blake Corum draft pick we loved a lot in the new duo scheme with the bolstered up offensive line. Boston Scott, from a special teams perspective, he was very productive in Philadelphia, especially against the New York Giants. And then Zach Evans is a former draft pick who I feel like people just don't want to give up on quite yet, right? I mean, he's going into year 3, I believe, or year 2. And it had a lot of promise in college. Obviously, wasn't able to produce last year when called upon, but it's only because you got some other talent in the building and you want to be able to ride kind of the hot hand in the running back room. And it's difficult to do when you got too many bodies in the building.
Right. I mean, God willing, Kyron and Blake stay healthy the entire season.
Yeah.
But Zach Evans could be somebody that needs to get called upon at some point. And hopefully, this is the year when he does answer the call if an opportunity presents itself. But you're right. It has been a little disappointing because
we'll say I was going to say, like, for example, out of the backfield, right, if you have Kyron or Blake go down, then you might have to call upon Zach Evans to fulfill that second spot, right? If you're going to go 2-headed attack in the backfield and split carries. And Boston Scott's a good pass catcher out of the backfield, but he's not good. Say, for example, the Rams are in pistol frequently. Boston Scott doesn't have a ton of reps in that formation. And he's obviously not one of the bigger guys, but they're all not overwhelmingly big. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how that all shakes out. We hope the 2 guys are at the top are healthy.
Yeah, I was going to say best case scenario, it's Corum and it's Williams, and it's a little bit of Scott with some magic sprinkled in with the new special teams call. But that's pretty much where it starts and finishes.
100%. And then for receivers, you got, as of last year, Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, Tutu Atwell, Benny Skoranek, no longer on the roster. Puka Nacua and Demarcus Robinson. And same with Van Jefferson, no longer on the roster. So you have some continuity between the big 3, right? It's Demarcus Robinson, Puka Nacua, and Cooper Kupp. It's your X, your F, and your Z, right? The primary 3 in 11 personnel, the 3 guys that you like to call upon most frequently. You saw Demarcus Robinson's snap count increase in the most important weeks of the season post-bye last year, and you saw Tutu Atwell snap counts decrease, which is concerning for the future of Tutu Atwell, I would say. But the Rams kept 6 receivers last year. I think they're going to keep 6 again. I crossed out Drake Stoops' name because I feel like he could be a special team contributor. But Tyler Johnson was right on the cusp last year fighting for a roster spot with Demarcus Robinson. So for this year, I went Coop, Puka, Demarcus Robinson, Tutu Atwell, Jordan Whittington, obviously as a rookie, another guy that can help in special teams, but is also a big slot receiver with Sarkisian in Texas. And you saw how productive he was when he was healthy. And then Tyler Johnson would be the 6th guy that I would keep. But it depends on, how productive he is in training camp. If they feel like Drake Stoops can be an Austin Trammell replacement, who we saw a lot in the preseason, that to me can make a ton of sense. So, and you also have JJ Lapp as the other guy who I believe was an undrafted free agent who is going to be in the building, who's going to be competing for a roster spot. Otherwise, you keep him on the practice squad, but I feel like your core 3 is obviously most important, but you need some depth behind that. And Jordan Whittington is the guy that I like the most is depth.
The fact that Puka has fully arrived and is proven throughout an entire, 18 game season last year is nothing short of just amazing. And then Kupp, Super Bowl MVP, and then Demarcus Robinson just rejuvenating his career. Those 3, like you said, are absolutely the core. And then you're really just hoping for someone to step up. And this is probably Tutu's last year to make that impression happen.
100%.
Because we saw it last year with Van Jefferson. It did not happen. And then,
Yeah.
now.
You see it with Cam Akers too, right? Like last year of their rookie deal. Something about the last year of the Rams is guys on the Rams roster on their last year of their rookie deal, right? If they feel like their time is expiring, they could swap picks in later rounds, like they did with Cam Akers and Van Jefferson. The same thing could happen with Tutu Atwell in a trade. And I wouldn't be surprised if they had previously shopped him and will shop him again. So receiver, obviously going to be interesting, but Jordan Whittington would be the guy that we think is going to step up in the receiver room if Coop or Puka goes down. Demarcus Robinson, hopefully still aging in reverse, who we love at age 30. But tight ends, the Rams kept 4 last year: Tyler Higbee, Bryson Hopkins, Hunter Long, and Davis Allen. So Davis Allen was obviously a rookie, right? But he produced early on in the preseason with Stetson Bennett at quarterback. And then he was great after the bye when Tyler Higbee and Hunter Long went down. And he was still able to get some snaps in that regard. So he's the guy. He's the primary pass catcher, I feel like, on day one, the field stretcher. Colby Parkinson's going to be really important. Tyler Higbee, I don't think is going to be there on day one because of the major injury. And Hunter Long, I crossed out as well. So I think they're going to keep 3 tight ends this year instead of 4 like they did last year.
Yeah, I saw that you crossed out Hunter. What is the significance of that? Do you think he's just not going to make it past the practice squad?
Coming off a major,
somebody else would pick him up.
You could keep him on the practice squad, right? You could waive him, or you could cut him, and you could save $1.3 million, which would be something of significance, right? If you're trying to increase the salary cap a little bit, I wouldn't be surprised to see them do that. I wouldn't be surprised to see them waive him and then bring him back to the practice squad as depth. But I just think, and you also have some undrafted tight ends that are going to be in the building as well. So that 4th tight end spot, I feel like it's just too much, right? If you're going to keep 3 quarterbacks, you're going to keep 6 receivers and 4 running backs. You have something's got to give. That's the problem with the 53-man roster.
3 definitely is the magic number for tight ends, especially just how little is asked of the tight end outside of like the blocking position. So I agree that Hunter probably won't make it, but I don't know. I say it every time we talk about him. It's so lame that like he's so associated with Jalen Ramsey, and we just never got to see the potential of him as a tight end that we thought we could get.
And it doesn't happen sometimes, right? And also the Jalen Ramsey deal was also a big salary cap dump, right? You ate the dead money, then you were able to take your salary cap off the books in future years. So like that was really the trade, and like any other piece you got on top of that was beneficial. And if Hunter Long doesn't work out, he doesn't work out. You got Davis Allen. You gave Colby Parkinson a ton of money, who I think is going to be really helpful in this run scheme, especially as an inline blocker. And in the red zone, love him a lot in that situation as well. You see his highlights with Seattle, where he's gritty in the run game, right? He wants to run people over. He's good as an inline polling blocker, and he can lead in that regard. So I love him there. He's going to be fun to watch. And then the offensive line, they kept 10 last year. They went Brian Allen, no longer on the roster. Coleman Shelton, no longer on the roster. Joe Noteboom, the 8th biggest cap hit on the Rams' roster currently, who I think is going to get no playing time. Trayvon Ingram, no longer around. Alaric Jackson is going to be our starting left tackle. Rob Havenstein, our starting right tackle. Steve Avila started every single game, every single snap, 100% of the snaps at left guard. Warren McClendon Jr., who I think is going to be back again. Zachary Thomas, who I think is going to be on the border of maybe 10. But I feel like we're going to have to go with 9 just because of how everything's going to shake out. And then Kevin Dotson, obviously. So the starting offensive line, you got Alaric Jackson, Jonah Jackson, Steve Avila at center, which I think everybody's really excited to see, Kevin Dotson at right guard, and then Rob Havenstein, longest tenured Ram. All Rams fans drink. It kind of looks like Trey Parker, Nick. I do. Where's Matt Stone?
He does kind of look like Trey Parker.
I told you. Yeah, he does a little bit.
We got to get Trey Parker to a Rams game. I know they're big Kings fans, but I also think they're big Broncos fans. So
yeah. So I think and I'm looking too, like Joe Noteboom would be that first depth piece. Warren McClendon would be another depth piece. They both have tackle guard versatility. Bo Limmer, who I loved out of the draft, I feel like will be Steve Avila insurance in case Steve Avila is not able to play 100% of the snaps. KT Levinston was their 7th round pick, who they took, who has also tackle and guard versatility. He's the kind of tackle that I feel like they'll eventually move inside. And then Zach Thomas was that guy on the border that I had to put the strike through because I just feel like it's too much. You don't have to keep 10 offensive linemen. You have 5 stable pieces as starters. You got one guy you're paying a ton of money who's going to be on the bench for the majority of the season.
Yeah.
And the rest of the guys are rookies or in their second year.
Even with Noteboom kind of taking up so much of the allocated money for offensive linemen, I feel like this may be the best front we've had since like 2019 or sorry, 2018.
2018 for sure. Or you could
Yeah.
even, well, not, I mean, 21. I mean, you had the two bookend
Yeah.
pieces, but you had some uncertainty inside and Havenstein and Big Wit. I agree with you. Besides, a lot of people don't like Alaric Jackson, but I think he's a great player.
I love Jackson.
And now with Steve Avila moving over to center, which some people say it's his natural position, some people say it's left guard. This just feels like it's done correctly for maybe the first time in the McVay era. So
yeah,
I'm so excited to see the way the new duo scheme is rolled out, them being in the pistol formation, Stafford being protected, extending his career. All of those things play into each other, right? So
keeping him upright is going to be the number one key to the season. And
totally.
We know he's a tough son of a bitch, but it will eventually get us all. Let's just say that. So
unfortunately true.
Yeah, you kind of just have to hope that this really is like the end all be all best offensive line that we've had under McVay. And no, we do not have a Todd Gurley, but Williams, I mean, hopefully with more help and with these tough blocking tight ends can become that next level guy that is drafted in the first round of fantasy and is a huge factor to the Rams just having a over 8.5 win season, which I think they'll hammer. Sorry, I should have thrown that in there. No. I think that's crazy that is the number right now. I slam that. It's the same as the Jags. We're going to be on the same page as the Jags. Get out of town.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah, I 100%. That's where you guys should make your money this offseason is place an early bet on the Rams going over on their win-loss total. And I think you can get really good value for the Rams winning the NFC West if you want to go take that bet as well. Obviously, there's San Francisco in the way, but with the Brandon Ayuk drama and eventually having to pay Brock Purdy and all this shit.
I just like how Arizona and Seattle, it's not even a worry. It's it's us or San Francisco.
No, they're a 6-7 win team at best. And Seattle is going to be new coach right on the cusp, maybe 8 wins.
Something crazy, just real quick, since we're talking about win totals. The most money bet on for a team to go over their win total is on Arizona.
Interesting. I would think it's between them and New England because I think New England's at 4.5.
Yeah, they won 3 last year.
I know, but they got the new coach methodology, right? Where it's you're going to win at least 3-4 games, 5 games.
I took New England over 6.5 last year, like an idiot, believing in Mac Jones and the Patriot way. It's so dumb. I couldn't even celebrate them being bad.
I totally understand. So this is when it comes from the defensive line, edge, defensive backs. There's so much turnover on this defense, especially leading the way with Aaron Donald. But you got a lot of guys in their second year who are expected to take big leaps. Even guys that are in their contract year, like a guy like Bobby Brown, who we feel like we need to take a big leap, and rookies that we drafted in Braden Fisk and Jared Verse and Brennan Jackson, and even Omar Spites, who I have on the list as well, making the roster as the third inside linebacker. But defensive line, they kept 7 last year. As Aaron Donald, Jonah Williams, Laurel Murchison, Bobby Brown, Ernest Brown, Kobe Turner, and Dejuan Johnson. This year we went Kobe Turner, Braden Fisk, Bobby Brown, Dejuan Johnson, Tyler Davis as a rookie, and Laurel Murchison again because he did get some decent snaps later on in the season. I felt like he would be a piece that at least you have some continuity with that group. Like I said, there's so much turnover. So, a little bit shaky, but these guys feel like they're, these two and Kobe Turner are the faces of the front. So I can't wait to see these guys play together. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, I just both you were allowed to watch them play together last year, and it's going to be great that you can watch them play together again this year on the same team. You know what I mean? And then also just fun little shout out, Kobe Turner, Masked Singer.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I saw he sung the national anthem for the Lakers game, and he's in an a cappella group too on Behind the Grind. So he's all over the place. He's just
Yeah, he is awesome. A great young face of this Rams organization that hopefully we have for quite a long time. I really want more of this, just sacking a quarterback and then just going to your other like favorite hobby.
Yeah, I think it was an old defensive line coach. I'm trying to remember where. Maybe it was in high school that told him that he should use that as a celebration, right? So it continued through college, and like he took all of those music classes. He's the kind of kid where you're thinking like, can this guy really be tough up front? Like he's got all these other things going on. He's not like the prototypical interior defensive lineman that is, cut from steel. He has this different kind of background. But I mean, that's the kind of thing that you love about this new era of football is these guys can do so many things and they can do so many things well, which is why you love them so much in your program. And Kobe's a guy that's, going to continue to excel. I have no doubt about that.
It's just so sad to read the last year and the first name is Aaron Donald.
I know it sucks.
And
Kobe goes right to the top of that list. And look where he was listed last year. He was the second to last guy.
He deserves being the face of the D line this year, 100% based on his performance last year.
Him and Braden will be the faces of the interior defensive line. And then edge too. It's really interesting because they kept 5 last year. I listed 6. I accidentally wrote 7, but I kept 6. I was going to keep Keir Thomas, but I didn't want to. Last year it was Michael Hoyt, Byron Young, Nick Hampton, Zach Van Walkenberg, and Oshwan Mathis. So they kept 5 last year. So I felt like no talent. Like just no talent in that group last year. But this year you bring in Jared Verse. You got Byron Young, who's in his second year, had 9 sacks last year. Michael Hoyt, who's going to be a rotational pass rusher. Nick Hampton, who Jordan said is really progressing well, looks ultra fast, and training camp's going to be super interesting to see how he progresses. Oshwan Mathis going into his second year, and Brennan Jackson, who we absolutely loved in the pre-draft process. So like those are 6 guys that you could really kind of hang your hats on and say, these guys are all going to work together, speed power combinations, however they're going to pair together. But I think they're going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Brennan Jackson, in my mind, has like a personal gold star because it was somebody that we had like circled and then triple circled while we were doing all the pre-draft process. Yeah. So it's just really cool that like, somebody that we had focused on because you don't know how the chips are going to fall. You never do. But to have someone that we were so on top of, like actually be in horns is just, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I totally agree. And then inside linebacker too, they kept 3 last year. Ernest Jones, Christian Roseboom, and Jake Hummel. Jake Hummel primarily played special teams. So I had Jake Hummel and Troy Reeder both on the cusp. But then I went Ernest Jones, Christian Roseboom, and Omar Spates. Because Omar Spates, like Oregon State, LSU, really, really good body of work, more talented than Jake Hummel and more talented than Troy Reeder. Like he's the kind of guy that I feel like can play opposite of Ernest Jones in rotation with Christian Roseboom. Gotten a lot of good inside scoops from some of the guys that covered the draft and have identified a lot of undrafted free agents that they feel like will make rosters. Omar Spates is that guy for us. So I think he's going to be a lot of fun to kind of keep your eyes on throughout training camp because I feel like he's going to be one that makes the roster. And then defensive backs kept 10 last year. They went Kobe Durant, Darion Kendrick, Akello Witherspoon, who came in late around this time last year. Trey Tomlinson is going into his second year. Sean Jolly, Jordan Fuller no longer around. Russ Yeast, John Johnson no longer around, Quentin Lake, and Jason Taylor. But all the talk is about these big 3 guys, right? I mean, like we talked about Kobe Durant, talked about Darion Kendrick, we talked about Quentin Lake and Russ Yeast, like Trey White, Cam Curl, and Darius Williams coming back for a second stint with the Rams, rocking the bone. All 3, these 3 guys, I feel like are going to be the faces of the secondary because of their veteran ability, because of their what they've been able to do in the league already. And Trey White, if he stays healthy, he's going to be a ton of fun to watch as a Ram. So
I've never seen a better depiction of our 3 jerseys than that photo you just flashed. I mean, they look absolutely perfect there. I mean, just like no notes outside of gradient. No notes.
Gradient. People want to talk about the broken horn, whatever. It is what it is. So we got Darius Williams, Trey White, Cam Curl, Kobe Durant, Darion Kendrick, Quentin Lake, Russ Yeast, Cam Kinchins, who I just loved from a rookie perspective, Trey Tomlinson, and Jason Taylor I had right on the cusp. And he could be another one that if you're looking for another roster spot offensively, you can get rid of him. But he's another guy who's, I think, in his second or third year, had some snaps last year. So, I mean, like these are kind of guys you have, you need continuity. You need it in some form. You need guys that understand the defense. But like we talked about the star position between Russ Yeast and Kobe Durant and Quinn Lake, that is all going to be really interesting. Even Darion Kendrick potentially getting snaps at that position. But again, those big three guys and Kobe and Quentin and Russ and even Cameron Kinchins, this defensive back class is so much more talented than they were this time last year. So I think that's exciting.
You kind of feel like you were like filling in holes with John Johnson and Jordan Fuller, like bringing out guys that kind of like understood what they wanted to run there. But now I feel like you have like a unit that it's like the whole is as equal as the sum of its parts, which was not the case last year. Like it just like there were clear like penalties that just kept coming up with like unexperience and, you know, like just causing just like first downs when you're like, oh my God, like all we needed was just to stop. And I feel like now you'll have like a unit that is like fully on the same page. And hopefully, you know, everything that we say about how great this defense could potentially be, so much of it falls on the potential masterclass or poop class of Shula.
Yeah, I know. It's so true, right? Coming off of a couple really solid years with Raheem, even the years prior with Wade Phillips, like you've had strong continuity, you've had strong minds in the building from a defensive perspective. It allows Sean McVay to focus on his job. But like now you need talent. You need talent in the secondary. You need vocal leaders. And now without Aaron Donald in the building as well, and even Coach Henney from a defensive line perspective, like it looked like this defense on paper last year was only Aaron Donald. That was the only talented player on the entire defensive roster. And now you got 7, 8, 9 guys that you feel like can really kind of bring you along and propel you to 9, 10 wins and maybe even 11, 12, get you into that 3rd seed, maybe 4th seed in the playoffs in the NFC. And really kind of make some noise in the playoffs the way that they expected to post by last year.
4th seed teams win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they sure did.
With a 4th seed in 2021, they won. And I remember I thought that was like the kiss of death. I was like, oh, God.
Well, you got to play an extra playoff game, right? And it's like Matthew Stafford's first playoff game against Arizona. You know,
his first playoff win.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, my God. It feels like forever ago.
Yeah, and then you had that winless November, which was scary that everybody was harping back to. I think they lost 3 or 4 in a row, right when they brought in Odell and they brought in Von Miller, and you're like, what the hell's going on with this team?
I think that was the worst month of your sports life.
It was close. Yeah, because the expectations were so sky high. And then it was that Titans game that you were at that I feel like Jeffrey Simmons just destroyed Matthew Stafford consistently. And now it's like we go back to the offensive line. You have talent on the inside too, where you could protect that A gap where Matthew Stafford is going to get consistently pounded by a guy like Jeffrey Simmons. It's gotten better. Like from year over year, I feel like this roster is much more talented. So I'm excited to see it all come to work.
They were so young last year collectively because they had to fill so many holes. And now you have all these guys with experience that, I mean, you lost the main experienced guy on defense with Donald, but a lot of these guys got a year to work with him, which I think is why Kobe Turner kind of skyrocket to where he is right now. So just follow in Donald's footsteps. And it's not like I said all that stuff about Shula. He's been in the building. Like, it's not like he's like completely new. So hopefully he keeps a lot of what worked well with Raheem, and you know that he can build on that and make it his own.
And there's already reports that Aaron Donald is working with guys like Braden Fisk. Right, they're going to be doing some offseason programs together. Kobe Turner's obviously going to stay close to Aaron Donald, so Donald's going to stay close to the program. That's 100% fact, similar to the way Big Whit did in 22 and 23. And I would imagine he'll be back again in 24 just to be around the building.
Donald and Kelsey are 2 guys. I mean, Kelsey, it would need to be somebody goes down. But, like, I think he would come back if the Eagles have a playoff run. And I think Donald is just, like, right there with them where they have so much love for their team and, like, the city that drafted them that it's, like, it's beyond what just, like, a regular retirement is. So I'm kind of holding out hope.
And you don't see guys, like, play their entire careers with one single team anymore. So it's really like the old way of doing it. And they're unanimous first ballot Hall of Famers in 2020.
Like even JJ Watt went to Arizona before he retired, right? Like I think that might taint his legacy a little bit.
Yeah, but he in his prime was so damn good.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I mean, I loved watching. I mean,
I agree.
That Texans team with him and Deshaun was so fun.
It was. And then specialists, Rams only kept 2 last year. They had Ethan Evans and Alex Ward. They had no kicker on the roster. No kicker. So we had, and we obviously this year we have Alex Ward, we have Joshua Cardi, and we have Ethan Evans. So there's your boy, Gentle Joshua. Cardi, what do you want to call him? Cardi B? Cardi G?
Because he's tall. Gentle G.
I'm excited to see how these specialists shake out. It reminds me of the early days with Jake McQuaid and Johnny Hecker and Greg the Leg. Like,
who's in the middle?
You've recreated that.
Who's in the middle?
That's Gentle Josh.
Yeah, he looks so much like my buddy Gary there. I'm gonna need to screenshot that and send it to him. And that's where the nickname comes from, because we call Gary Gentle G. So we're gonna have to. That looks so much like him.
I'll send you the picture. All right, and that's what we got for today. That is the 53-man depth chart projection. We've got a lot more coming at you guys. I think that as the season progresses, you're going to see things happen. And guys are going to get waived. Maybe they'll open up roster spots for some free agents. But I think as it stands right now, this group of players are much more talented, with the exception of Aaron Donald not being in the building, than they were last year. So I think they're going to get off to a hotter start. You're not going to be in a 3-6 hole going into the bye. And I think this season could potentially be a little bit more fun than it was last year, with the exception of how great they were after the bye week. So
I think it's going to be a hoot and holler. And for those listening on YouTube, I think there's only people listening on YouTube left, because we're no longer uploading on Apple Pods or Spotify, because this is the best way that you can support us, is if it's all through YouTube. So appreciate you guys hanging around and liking and subscribing and listening through YouTube, because it's really the best way to support Dean and I. So,
yep. And that's what we need. I mean, that's exactly we need. We need the YouTube support. We need all we can get from you guys. So we greatly appreciate you all. And go Rams. Talk to you guys soon.
Go Rams. Gentle Josh.